Trump's approach to foreign policy isn't about friendship, it's about deals, transactions. What can you do for me? And when he looks at the UK, he doesn't see a partner, he sees an opportunity. Think about it. Britain is desperate for a US trade deal, desperate to prove Brexit wasn't a catastrophic mistake, desperate to stay relevant as Europe moves on without them. That desperation, that's blood in the water, and Trump is a shark. So, what does he do? He applies pressure, publicly. He hints that a trade deal might come, but only on his terms.
Imagine waking up, putting on your best sensible leader tie, and stepping out onto the world stage to tell everyone that the global order is stable, Britain is secure, and everything is going exactly to plan. You are Sir Keir Starmer, and you have spent months crafting an image of calm, boring, lawyerly competence. Then, suddenly, the ground does not just shift, it opens up like a sinkhole in the middle of Whitehall. Because while Starmer was giving speeches about values and stability, Washington made a move that sent shockwaves straight through Westminster and all the way to the icy shores of Greenland. Suddenly, the United States was not talking like a traditional ally, it was talking like an owner. Britain did not just notice, Britain panicked. We are talking emergency statements, rushed diplomatic cables, and government ministers tripping over themselves to insist this special relationship is stronger than ever. It was the political equivalent of your landlord showing up unannounced, changing the locks, and asking why the rent hasn't been paid in influence. The translation was simple: please do not cut us out. Starmer was not just responding to a policy disagreement, he was staring into the terrifying realization that Britain might no longer matter in the way it once did. And Donald Trump, he just found the one thing Keir Starmer was trying to hide: the fact that the old world is dead and Britain is currently wandering the graveyard without a map. Quick favor, if you're loving this, hit that subscribe button. Over 92% of viewers haven't yet. It's free. Takes a second and means the world to us. Thanks if you did.
Trump didn't just spot Britain's weakness in trade, he spotted it in defense, in security, in the entire architecture of Western power. For 80 years, NATO has been the backbone of European security. The US has been the ultimate guarantor, the big brother who shows up when things go sideways. But Trump's made it crystal clear that era is over. He's told NATO allies, including the UK, to spend more on defense or face the consequences. And when he says consequences, he doesn't mean a stern letter, he means America stepping back.
Now back to the show. The reality of the Greenland situation is not actually about a giant block of ice in the North Atlantic. It is about who sets the rules of the game in 2006. For the first time in generations, the United States is openly questioning the post-war arrangement, the very system Britain helped to design, but no longer controls. While UK politicians are busy arguing about the nuance of diplomatic language, Donald Trump is playing pure, unadulterated power politics. It is cold, it is transactional, and it is entirely unemotional. Greenland was merely the signal flare, not the objective. On the surface, the pundits will tell you the argument is about Arctic security, Russian naval movements, or Chinese influence in the north. But beneath that thin layer of frost is something far more dangerous for the resident of number 10. We are witnessing a new American doctrine that does not ask what is good for the West, it asks what is good for America. Full stop. And if Britain, Europe, or NATO do not fit into that equation, they are not just ignored, they are sidelined. This is why Keir Starmer's reaction was so incredibly revealing. It was not the strength of his words that mattered, but the sheer defensiveness of his posture. Deep down, the establishment in Westminster understands exactly what this moment represents. The old assumptions are gone. The idea that Britain automatically has a seat at the top table? Gone. The idea that America will carry the financial and military costs of Europe's security? Forever? Gone. The idea that NATO is an untouchable sacred relic? Shaking. This is why the political class is so desperate to frame every move from Washington as chaos or recklessness. Admitting the truth is far more painful than pretending Trump is just being unpredictable. This is not chaos. It is a fundamental reordering of the planet. And Britain, under Sir Keir Starmer, is currently reacting like a passenger in a car that has just lost its steering wheel. To truly grasp the magnitude of this collapse, you have to look at the sheer desperation pouring out of Downing Street. When the news broke that Washington was eyeing Greenland as a strategic asset, essentially treating the North Atlantic like a game of Monopoly where they own the board, The British government's response was not one of strength, but of a frantic, pleading subservience. We saw ministers who usually pride themselves on their cool, detached professionalism suddenly babbling about shared history and the blood spilled on the beaches of Normandy. It is the international equivalent of a former employee listing their achievements from 20 years ago while they are being escorted out of the building. Starmer's government is terrified because they have built their entire foreign policy on the assumption that the United States would always be the policeman of the world who gives Britain a special badge and a seat in the patrol car. But Trump has decided the patrol car is too expensive to run, and he is going to start charging for the petrol. The shockwaves through Westminster are not just about security. They are about the total loss of a national identity that has existed since 1945. Britain without a direct, influential line to the Oval Office is like a celebrity without a publicist. Suddenly, nobody is returning your calls, and you are left wondering if you were ever actually famous or if you were just standing next to someone who was. If you want to understand why Keir Starmer looks so uneasy, why Britain is suddenly pleading loyalty like a jilted lover, and why the European Union is panicking behind closed doors, you do not need to look at a tweet or a headline. You need to look at a document. Every American president is required to publish a national security strategy. Usually these documents are a cure for insomnia, full of vague platitudes about democracy, cooperation, and shared goals. But the latest one from the Trump administration reads like a final warning.
Britain's reputation as a diplomatic heavyweight crumbling, its ability to broker deals, mediate conflicts, shape global policy fading, because respect in geopolitics isn't earned by history, it's earned by strength, by options, by the ability to say no and make it stick. And right now, Britain has no options. Trump saw that, and he's making sure everyone else sees it too.
There is no talk of leading the free world out of the goodness of the American heart. There are no moral lectures about the liberal international order. Instead, it lays out a brutally simple principle. American power exists to serve American interests, and absolutely nothing else. That single sentence should terrify Westminster, because buried in this strategy is a radical shift that Britain was never meant to notice until it was too late. Think about the mental gymnastics required in London right now. British politicians are used to the idea that alliances are like marriage vows, for better or for worse. But Washington is now treating alliances like a Netflix subscription. If the service is too expensive and the content is rubbish, they are going to cancel it or at least demand a massive discount. American politicians do not swear loyalty to NATO or the European Union. They swear loyalty to the United States Constitution. And newsflash, the Constitution does not mention Brussels, it does not mention the special relationship, and it certainly does not mention subsidizing the defense of countries that spend more on bike lanes than battle tanks. Alliances are now tools, not obligations. If a tool is blunt, you sharpen it or you throw it away. The tragedy for Starmer is that he is a man of rules, a man of process, a man who believes that if you just follow the established international law, everything will be fine. But Trump is not a man of rules. He is a man of deals. He has found out that Starmer has no leverage. He knows that the UK economy is struggling, that the British military is a shadow of its former self, and that the bridge Britain claims to be between the US and Europe is currently closed for repairs. When Starmer stands up and says, Britain is not broken, Trump looks at the balance sheet and sees a country that is borrowing money to pay for its own decline. That is the big thing Trump has found. The bluff has been called. The idea of Britain as an indispensable global power is currently being audited, and the results are not looking good for the home team. Suddenly, the world starts making a lot more sense. This is why peace talks are happening on American terms without inviting the European partners to the table. This is why foreign leaders are being summoned to the United States rather than being consulted over a nice lunch in Paris. This is why wars that were once described as non-negotiable are suddenly open for settlement. Permanent conflict is expensive, and this new American strategy treats war like a bad investment. Economic security is now national security. This is not the idealism of Woodrow Wilson. It is the hard-headed realism of Alexander Hamilton. It is trade over treaties, commerce over crusades, and power over promises. Now, look at Europe through that lens. From Washington's perspective, Europe does not pay enough for defense. It relies on American security guarantees like a spoiled teenager relies on their parents' credit card, and it has the audacity to lecture America while America foots the bill. That is not a partnership, it is a dependency. And Britain, which once prided itself on being the bridge between America and Europe, is discovering that the bridge is no longer indispensable because Washington has decided to build a boat instead. Keir Starmer keeps talking about values because values are quite literally all he has left to offer. But this strategy does not care about your values. It cares about your leverage.
Here's what Trump saw that British politicians missed. Britain stopped being a power and started being a brand built on history, on pageantry, on the idea of greatness. But brands without substance, they collapse the moment someone calls the bluff. And Trump, he's the ultimate bluff caller. He looked at Britain and saw a nation living beyond its means, politically, economically, militarily. He saw a country that talks like a giant but can barely keep its own infrastructure running. He saw vulnerability, desperation, dependence, and he decided to capitalize. That's not cruelty, that's not even malice, it's just business. Cold, calculated, ruthlessly effective. So, here's the uncomfortable question no one in Westminster wants to ask. What if Trump is right?
This disconnect is where the danger lies. Starmer is speaking the language of the 20th century, the language of human rights, international conventions, and collective security. Trump is speaking the language of the 21st century, the language of tariffs, energy dominance, and strategic real estate. When Starmer mentions international law, it sounds to Washington like someone trying to use a coupon that expired in 1995. The American doctrine has moved on to a power-first approach that views international organizations as annoying obstacles rather than helpful frameworks. This is why the Greenland signal was so loud. It was a demonstration that the US will act in its own hemisphere and its own interests regardless of what the Danish government, the UK government, or the EU says. It is the ultimate deal mentality. You have something we need for our security? We are going to take it, buy it, or control it. And if you are an ally who expects to be asked first, you are living in a dream world. Starmer's special relationship is currently being treated like an old gym membership that Trump is trying to cancel because he has realized he can just work out at home for free. That brings us straight back to the icy reality of Greenland. In this new worldview, Greenland is not a European territory to be respected. It is strategic real estate. It sits right between America and the Atlantic, between Russia and NATO, and between the old alliances and the new power balances. If you control Greenland, you control the northern chessboard. Britain's outrage over American assertiveness in the Arctic is actually a mask for deep-seated fear. The United States is not asking for permission anymore. It is making moves, and Britain is finding out that special relationship might just be a polite term for junior partner who should stay quiet while the adults are talking. The sheer scale of the panic in the Foreign Office cannot be overstated. We are talking about officials who have spent their entire lives believing that Britain was the wise old head that whispered advice into the ear of the American brawn. Now the American brawn has decided it is smarter than the old head, and it does not need the whispers. This is a massive blow to the British ego. It is the moment you realize that you were not the co-pilot, you were just a passenger who was allowed to hold the map while the car was on a straight road. Now the road has turned into a Rocky Mountain pass, and Trump has grabbed the map and thrown it out the window. Starmer is left, trying to remember the directions, while Trump is already accelerating into the distance. It is a reordering of the world that puts Britain in a very lonely position. We are too small to be a superpower, too large to be ignored, and currently too indecisive to be useful. Trump has sensed this weakness. He has found that beneath the veneer of Starmer's lawyerly confidence, there is a vacuum where a national strategy should be. Now comes the part that absolutely nobody in Westminster wants to discuss over their organic kale salads. Once you understand the strategy, once you see the document, and once you accept that this is design rather than chaos, you have to ask who actually loses here. The answer is uncomfortable. The losers are not America, and they are not even Russia or China, at least not in the short term. The real losers are the middle powers that built their entire global influence inside the old cozy system. We are talking about Britain, the European Union, and the permanent diplomatic class that populates the halls of the Foreign Office. For decades, Britain's power did not come from the size of its army or the sheer force of its economy. It came from its position. We were the quiet broker, the trusted insider, the bridge across the pond. But a bridge only matters if both sides actually want to cross it. Under this new American doctrine, Washington does not need Europe in the same way it did during the Cold War. Security is being regionalized. Power is being concentrated. Deals are replacing doctrines. That is why things that once felt unthinkable, like the sudden push for Ukraine to accept neutrality or the reorganization of the Middle East, are happening right now. Endless wars are being wound down, not out of a sudden burst of compassion, but because of cold calculation. Wars drain capital. Instability hurts trade. And trade is the new battlefield.
Well, here to talk us through how it's all gone down is Sky News contributor Adrian Hayes. Adrian, welcome. Donald Trump has reportedly blasted Starmer's Beijing visit, branding the China reset as very dangerous. What do you make of that?
Yeah, look, to give the government side first, I mean, the Prime Minister of the government would say it's about creating a sophisticated relationship, largest economy in the world, business interests, national interests, and so on. Critics will say, what was actually achieved? It was 5% reduction on whiskey tariffs. Okay, great. It was a visa-free travel for tourists and business interests, and a cooperation and intelligence sharing to stop engine spare parts getting to the illegal Channel migrant smugglers. So some will say it didn't achieve that much. And of course, they all use burner phones on the visit as well.
This trade battlefield is where Britain is currently losing the most ground. Starmer's government is still trying to figure out how to manage the fallout from Brexit, while simultaneously trying to satisfy a U.S. administration that views trade as a weapon. Trump has found that Starmer is desperate for a trade deal, any trade deal, to show that his government is delivering growth. And when you are desperate, you do not get good terms. You get a take it or leave it offer that usually involves opening up your markets in ways that are politically suicidal at home. This is the big secret Trump has uncovered. Britain's current leadership has no plan B. They have hitched their wagon to the idea of a stable, predictable global order, but the horse has died and the wagon is on fire. Starmer is trying to put out the flames with a bucket of diplomatic platitudes, but it is not working. The American doctrine is moving towards a world where you either have a surplus of energy and manufacturing or you are a customer. Britain, unfortunately, is looking more and more like just another customer. Even long-standing allies are being handled with a different set of gloves. Leaders are no longer invited to Washington for grand photo opportunities in the Rose Garden. They are summoned often to private locations like Mar-a-Lago, and they are met on American terms. Look at how Benjamin Netanyahu was handled. He was not welcomed to the White House with open arms. He was called to a private club in Florida. That alone tells you everything you need to know about the new hierarchy. This is not diplomacy as the British Foreign Office understands it. This is a corporate takeover of global politics. Europe is discovering very quickly that it sits below American interests and well below American patience. The summoning of leaders is a key part of this new doctrine. It is designed to show exactly who is in charge. It is the political equivalent of a CEO calling a regional manager into their office to explain why the numbers are down. When Starmer travels to meet the Americans, he is not going as an equal partner. He is going as a supplicant. He is going to ask for exemptions from tariffs, to plead for continued intelligence sharing, and to beg for a mention in a press release. This hierarchy is humiliating for a country that still thinks it is 1944. Trump has found that by simply ignoring the special relationship rhetoric, he can get exactly what he wants from London. Why bother with the bridge when you can just fly over it? This realization has sent a chill through the halls of Westminster. The establishment is realizing that their access is a hollow shell. They might have the phone number, but nobody is picking up the call. This explains why the reaction in London and Brussels has been so emotional. The outrage over Greenland, the panic over potential tariffs, the warnings about the collapse of NATO, it is all a form of grief for a world that is dying. But here is the question that the mainstream media refuses to ask. Who actually benefits from the old system continuing? Is it the ordinary British taxpayer? Is it the soldier on the ground? Probably not. The old system benefited a permanent class of war-enriched defense contractors, non-governmental organizations, vast bureaucracies, and political careers built on endless negotiation. It benefited the establishment, not the citizens. This is why the backlash against this business-first world order is so fierce. This strategy threatens an entire class of people whose power depends on a state of never-ending crisis. Britain's political establishment senses, instinctively, that their influence is fading. Their access to the halls of power in Washington is shrinking. Their leverage is disappearing. And Keir Starmer is trapped right in the middle of it. He is trying to defend a system that no longer works to an ally that no longer believes in it. It is like trying to sell a typewriter to a man who just bought a laptop. Think about the billions of pounds spent on diplomatic soft power and international development over the last 20 years. From the perspective of the new American doctrine, that money has been largely wasted because it has not created tangible transactional power. Trump has found that Britain has been playing a game of pretend superpower while its industrial base eroded and its energy security vanished. Starmer is the face of this pretend era. He is a man who looks the part, speaks the part, and follows the script. But the script is for a play that has been canceled. The real action is happening in the boardrooms and the bunkers, where decisions are made based on raw resources and military readiness. Britain's lack of both has been exposed. The Greenland move was the final proof that the US is ready to act unilaterally to secure its future. And if Britain wants to be part of that future, it will have to stop lecturing and start delivering something the Americans actually value. So, when you hear the anger over Greenland or the speeches about shared values, understand what you are really watching. You are watching a world order trying to defend itself, not because it is right, but because it is dying. The only question left is this: will the British people accept a colder, harder, business-first world, or will they continue to cling to a moral language that no longer matches the reality of global power? That decision will not be made in the ivory towers of Washington. It will be made by voters in Britain, in Europe, and beyond. History is moving, and it is moving at a speed that the current leadership in Westminster simply cannot handle. The shift from values-based foreign policy to interest-based foreign policy is the defining transition of our time. Starmer is the last defender of the old guard, a man whose entire career has been spent in the courts and the committees of the liberal establishment. He believes that if you are right, you will win. But Trump has shown that if you are strong, you win, and then you decide who was right. This is a fundamental philosophical clash that Starmer is losing. He is trying to bring a law book to a knife fight. The American doctrine of strategic independence means that Britain is being forced to choose. Do we become a satellite of the United States, or do we try to lead a European bloc that is currently fragmented and fearful? At the moment, Starmer is doing neither. He is standing in the middle of the road shouting about stability, while the traffic of history is about to run him over. This did not start with a dispute over a piece of land in the Arctic, and it certainly does not end with Keir Starmer's latest press release. What we are watching is the total collapse of the assumptions that defined global politics for 80 years. We saw Britain panic because for the first time since 1945, the United States is no longer behaving like a benevolent, slightly gullible guardian of the West. We uncovered the why, a national security strategy that replaces high-minded ideals with hard-edged interests. And we see the consequences. Middle powers like Britain are losing their relevance faster than a flip phone in a tech shop. Diplomatic influence is shrinking. Moral authority is being replaced by the cold, hard currency of leverage. This is a reset. It is a colder world, certainly, but perhaps a more honest one, where power is no longer hidden behind grand speeches.
And there's a new sheriff in town, at least. That's what Leila Cunningham has been telling Londoners. She's put her hand up to run for London Mayor in 2028 for Reform UK. She says that she's fed up with the crime spiral. Let's take a listen.
If I'm mayor, there will be visible policing. There will be a zero tolerance approach, because even if you shoplift a £20 piece of steak, that's corrosive to the community. There will be consequences. You know what there'll be? There'll be a new sheriff in town.
The backlash is fierce because the truth is terrifying to those who have lived off the old lies. The old order is over. The real message from Washington to Starmer was loud and clear. The rules have changed, and we are the ones writing the new book. The sheer weight of this new reality is crushing the optimism of the new Labour project. Starmer's government wanted to be a force for good in the world, but they are finding out that the world is more interested in who has the gas and who has the chips than who is the most virtuous. Trump has found that Starmer is particularly vulnerable because he has no domestic mandate for a radical shift in foreign policy. He is stuck trying to please a pro-European base while managing a pro-American reality. It is a recipe for paralysis, and in a world of fast-moving giants, paralysis is a death sentence for a middle power. The big discovery Trump has made is that Britain is currently leadless in a sea of change. We have a manager when we need a navigator. We have a lawyer when we need a leader. The Greenland signal was just the beginning of a series of strategic surprises that will leave London breathless and broke. The question now is not whether this change is coming, it is already here. The question is whether ordinary people will finally be told the truth about it. So, I want to hear from you. Do you think this is the end of permanent war and the start of a more honest era? Or is it something much more dangerous? Is Britain being sidelined because of Trump? Or was our influence already a hollowed-out myth? And is this business-first world order something we should embrace or fear? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one of them. If this breakdown helped you see the bigger picture through the political fog, hit like, subscribe, and share this video. The stories that matter most are the ones the establishment refuses to explain properly. this story is not over. In many ways, the real struggle for Britain's place in the world has only just begun. The collapse of the old order is not a tragedy for everyone. For some, it is the birth of a more realistic, less hypocritical way of doing business. But for Sir Keir Starmer, it is the end of the world as he knows it. He has been found out. The big secret is out. The bridge is broken, the values are ignored, and Britain is on its own. It is time to stop pretending and start preparing for the world as it actually is, not as the Foreign Office wishes it to be. The energy of this shift is undeniable, and the consequences will be felt for generations. We are living through a reordering that happens once in a lifetime, and it is happening right now in the shadow of the Arctic ice and the light of a new American doctrine. The special relationship might be over, but the special reality is just beginning. Thank you for watching.